Presentation of CloudStreet, Soaring the American West, is sponsored in part by the Conrad N. Hilton Foundation, improving the lives of disadvantaged and vulnerable people throughout the world. Learn more at hiltonfoundation.org. And by the Soaring Society of America, fostering and promoting American soaring since 1932. For more information on learning how to soar, please visit ssa.org. And by STEMI AG. STEMI, the fine art of flying. Learn more at stemi.de.
Everybody has dreams of flying and being a bird and soaring around. It's the ultimate freedom.
Soaring is flying elevated to an art form.
You have that sense of freedom where you can go as far as you can see.
The soaring conditions out here in the West are some of the best in the world. You've got thousands of square miles that you can fly over.
We want to find these things that are going to uplift us and take us somewhere else, or bring us to new frontiers.
In the air, high above the West, 4 glider pilots will take us on an adventure across hundreds of miles of America's most iconic terrain, powered only by the energy of the sun. Along the way, they'll face rain and lightning, hail, and the bare granite peaks of the Rocky Mountains, the backbone of the North American continent. If you've ever watched a soaring bird and wondered what it would be like to fly, then come with us and find out as we fly the CloudStreets, soaring the American West. The Wright brothers turned an ancient dream into reality, developing planes that would ultimately cross the skies, powered by invisible energy on streets paved with clouds. Soaring flowered in pre-World War II Germany and returned like a seed on the wind to take root and thrive in the American West. The American West is a study in contrasts, mountain and valley, storm and calm, heaven and earth. A land defined as much by opportunity and adventure as by challenge and struggle. A land built on dreams, made concrete by ingenuity and hard work. For all its disparate attributes, one constant holds true. At 14,000 feet and climbing, the American West remains a place where dreams can still become reality. Towering over the Jackson Hole Valley, the Grand Teton National Park is one of the most inspirational landscapes in North America. These magnificent peaks erupt like a wolf's teeth from the valley floor, sharp and brutal. Glaciers and alpine lakes embellish the range, and in the cobalt skies above the spires, soaring pilots and eagles vie for lift and navigate an exquisite but dangerous labyrinth of wind and stone. For those with the will and skill, soaring the Tetons is a transformative experience.
Risk can be offset, and some things are worth doing. Everybody has dreams of flying and being a bird and soaring around. It's the ultimate freedom. And to do this is a physical and a spiritual and a mental freedom that is an amazing thing to experience. And this place where we soar, it's that plus eye candy. You know, the Tetons, which are unbelievably beautiful.
Chris Szynski is an international opera singer and an avid pilot. Based in Driggs, Idaho, she's been flying gliders for over 15 years and has spent nearly 1,600 hours soaring above these majestic peaks.
It is so exciting to be a bird just flying by this magnificent piece of granite there and waving at the climbers and, you know, just being in an element that humans don't get to be in, which is the air. When I started flying, I had no idea that it would, you know, could turn into this, because when you start, you're just so overwhelmed with trying to be able to do it. And same thing in anything else. When my singing, too, you're just so caught up in trying to execute everything well. But as you get better and more masterful at what you do, you can have the experience of being transported.
If you want to fly fast and far in a sailplane, you fly in Moriarty, New Mexico. Because of the ideal soaring opportunities, the tiny airfield based here is one of the premier soaring destinations in the world. In 2012, the pilots of the Soaring Club based in Moriarty flew 140,000 miles without an engine. Like the previous year, they placed third in the world in the OLC, or online contest. This contest allows soaring pilots from around the world to gauge their efforts against each other. Mark Mocho and Bill Hill were key components of the team.
Soaring is flying elevated to an art form. Okay, it's esoteric. Flying an airplane with an engine on it is very linear, very structured. Flying a sailplane requires a broader situational awareness and an understanding of what Mother Nature's provided for you.
The best thing about it is it's really taught me to look at the world in a way that many people don't. Meteorologists look at it as weather. I look at it as energy.
Modern life encourages you to ignore your surroundings. Soaring requires you to be an active part of them. The sun heats the slopes of the mountains and makes thermals, and thermals make clouds. Ultimately, the clouds align above the mountains, forming cloud streets. For soaring pilots, these coveted cloud streets represent highways in the sky. If a pilot wants to go far, they have to be able to read the weather. And to take advantage of the weather, pilots need a nearly aerodynamically perfect airplane. Gliders are sleek, high-performance planes. They are the most aerodynamically efficient of all aircraft. Nowhere is that made more obvious than in their beautiful curved lines. The aircraft's skin polished and smooth as glass to the touch. Made from composites including fiberglass and carbon fiber, the ships are as strong as they are beautiful. Because they have so little aerodynamic drag, they barely sink as they fly forward. In perfectly still air, a glider may fly forward 1 mile while losing only 150 feet of altitude.
You do all this analysis of the weather beforehand, and you come out and you realize that maybe the analysis is actually correct. There is going to be good lift. You start seeing a cumulus form and you're like, all right, I'm in. You get out on the line, put your chute on, slip down in this tiny little race car shaped cockpit with a fighter pilot canopy, and you latch it and you're going like, all right, this is going to be fun.
Mark's aircraft is temporarily linked to a tow plane that will pull his glider aloft.
Okay, so your mic is ready to roll.
Once in rising air, Mark will pull the release and begin to soar. The tow aircraft will return, and in a few minutes will tow Bill aloft.
Wing level, please.
At 2,000 feet, the glider pilots release the tow line and begin to rise upward in a thermal, the most common source of lift in this area. Thermals are columns of warm, rising air from the valley floor. These thermals are the boys' ticket to ride. The rest of the journey will be made in silence, soaring. The distance the pilot flies will depend entirely on their skill and the weather. Having found strong thermals, Bill and Mark climbed to 15,000 feet in a matter of minutes. Now they level out and start cruising across country on a CloudStreet. headed north toward the Rockies. On good days, the CloudStreet on the Sangre de Cristos runs from north-central New Mexico deep into the heart of Colorado. It's these conditions that allow the Soaring Club here to log so many miles.
Flying cross-country is a challenge. You have to match wits with Mother Nature, and you have to decide how you're going to best extract the energy that's available in the atmosphere.
Mark and Bill have declared Salida, Colorado, at the north end of the Sangre de Cristo mountain range as a goal for this soaring season, a nearly 560-mile round-trip flight from Moriarty. The Sangre de Cristos stretch hundreds of miles from central New Mexico into Colorado, and there connect with other ranges which continue north. Together, these ranges form the Rocky Mountains. The CloudStreets can reach into the Estancia Valley, where Moriarty is located, but the best and the fastest CloudStreets run along the Rocky Mountains. There, the distances between clouds are usually shorter, the thermals stronger, and the possibilities are measured in hundreds of miles.
We've got a chance of doing something that very, very few people in the world ever get a chance to do. There's so much energy out there in the atmosphere. People look at clouds and they go like, oh, look, a puffy cloud. And I look at it as like, wow, I'd love to be underneath that thing right now. It's always an adventure.
To reach Salida, Bill and Mark are going to need great weather and a little luck. A 150 years ago, Telluride was a mining boomtown. The spirit of the Old West still thrives here, and it remains a mecca for those with an insatiable appetite for adventure. Unlike the plains of Moriarty, Telluride lies in a box canyon on the western slope of the Rocky Mountains. The airport sits on a mesa with steep drops at both ends, made more treacherous by unpredictable wind and weather. Soaring from this location requires great skill and an airplane to match. Motor gliders are equipped with small engines and can take off without a tow plane. Once airborne, the pilot can shut down the engine, stow the propeller, and look for lift. Reconfigured in this way, the motor glider has all the performance of a pure sailplane, as well as the convenience of self-launching. For Glider Bob, the crystal clear skies of southwest Colorado offer an extraordinary soaring opportunity unmatched in splendor and scope.
I guess I was graduating high school, and a friend of mine, he sent me a letter and said, go as far as you can see, and when you get there, you'll be able to see farther. And I thought that was a really good life lesson from a philosophical point of view, but here in the West it means even more because you can see so far. The light here, as you can see this morning, crystal clear. As the day goes on, the light changes, the sun comes up, the shadows change, everything is different. So no matter when you go up flying, it looks different than it did, just an hour before. The light, the color, the clarity of everything, I think, is very important to what we enjoy about soaring here in the West. You get out here and you have this feeling of openness, this feeling of space. You have that sense of freedom, where you can go as far as you can see.
Here on the north side of the Telluride Box Canyon, the south-facing slope has been heated all morning, and thermals are now rising in a line along the ridge. Glider Bob maneuvers his craft close enough to the slopes to find the best line of flight. This line will keep the aircraft in rising air as much as possible. Dallas, Mears, and Gilpin peaks rise well above 13,000 feet, while Mount Sneffels and others reach over 14,000. With an average elevation of 10,000 feet above sea level, the Weminuche Wilderness is rugged, beautiful country.
One of the things that's beautiful about flying around Telluride are the amount of high mountain lakes that we have. All this land was carved out by glaciers years ago and left little depressions where water collects. The lakes here can be all sorts of different colors. There's kind of a green, there's a deep blue. I believe the coloring is because of glacial flour, which is a very fine silt that's left behind by the glaciers that is so fine it stays in suspension in the water and refracts the light differently. They're a brilliant blue, almost a neon color. Even more so than like the Caribbean, which is a very aquamarine, turquoise color. These are brilliant.
Looking good, TV?
Yep, good.
It's morning, and by 10 a.m., the first wisps of clouds are starting to form on the Rockies. The feet of these quintessential mountains are a mile high, and the peaks above treeline can reach well over 14,000 feet. During the soaring season, the Rocky Mountains are excellent thermal generators.
What makes air go up? Heating of the earth. And the heating of the earth is uneven because some of the earth is dark, some of it's light, some of it's water, some of it's rock. Who knows what that surface is? Some of it heats up faster, and that's where the air is going to rise, just like a little pot of boiling water. A bubble's going to form, and then it busts loose and rises up. That's what a thermal is. This hot air busting through the atmosphere. And that's what the cloud is the visible picture of that at its top. When I was becoming an airplane pilot, years after I got my glider ticket, I'm riding in the plane with my instructor and I said, "Oh, look at that CloudStreet." And he looks at me and goes, "What the heck is that?" I've been flying for like 50 years, I've never heard that. I said, "You are not a glider pilot." We know what that is. What it is, it's basically a row of clouds or a bunch of little cumulus. So cumulus are the puffy guys, and the best is flat bottoms for us. So flat bottoms are developing top, that's a cumulus cloud. When those things line up, that means there's lift under those clouds, and you don't have to thermal so much. You just like sort of fly along that ridge of clouds. It's really cool. CloudStreet is a good thing.
Glider pilots must always be on the lookout for energy. Over the years, soaring pilots have found that there are three basic types of energy, and by extension, soaring. The most common is thermal soaring, or thermaling, where the pilot finds columns of rising air and climbs by circling in this lift. There is also mountain lee wave soaring, in which standing waves are formed in the atmosphere, and gliders find and ride these long areas of lift. Another kind of soaring involves riding a long ridge of high pressure that forms on the windward side of a ridge or mountain. This is called ridge soaring. While this provides energy for the flight, the glider pilot must be very careful. Flying within feet of the rocks and ice requires great skill, and one wrong move could spell disaster. As the air passes over the windward side to the downwind or lee side of a mountain, it sinks, and airplanes flying in that air mass sink with it. Glider pilots must be aware of tumbling cylinders of air that are created as this wind passes over the top of the mountains. The effect of this tumbling air is known as rotor turbulence. Even on a smooth day, this rotor can create surprising conditions, as those in the camera ship will wholeheartedly attest.
One of the big characteristics of mountain flying is that, of course, we have this terrain. It's not just flat. I'm not just looking for a thermal. We have ridges, and ridges characteristically have air climbing up them one side and going down them on the other side. And in the mountains, I've had many a customer, I fly people all the time in scenic flights. They think you're being a hot dog because I'm kind of dive bombing the side of the ridge. And what are you doing? I said, I've got to get to the lift. If I'm in sync, I go right through it and I go right for the ridge. And you can literally be 100 feet off the ridge, and then there it is. Why am I going so close? You know, it's not because I'm being a hot dog, it's because that's where I'm going to be able to sustain my flight. If it's zero sync, that means I'm not sinking. I can fly along back and forth there forever. Or if there's even lift, I can get higher and go higher. Yes, you got to be safe. You got to be intelligent. If it's rip, snort, and wind, I'm not going to be back there. But on normal conditions, that's where you want to go. And it feels very counterintuitive, but that is the technique, and that's what you must do. It is a technique. It's not me being a maverick, you know.
Both birds and pilots search for rising plumes of air. When they find these plumes, they slow down and begin to turn, searching for the heart of the rising air. Birds and pilots do this in the same way and for the same reason, to travel great distances. The process will repeat itself many times throughout their journey, climbing and then cruising. Unlike a bird, a pilot must rely on an instrument called the variometer to tell him how fast he's climbing at any moment. The instrument does this by emitting a beeping sound. The different beeps indicate whether a pilot is gaining or losing altitude. It also allows the pilot to look around for other aircraft and birds. Ultimately, the birds and the glider reach the top of the thermal, where lift weakens. When the pilot detects that the plane is no longer climbing quickly, it's time to level out and continue their journey.
Flying in a thermal, you do things they tell you never to do in an airplane, which is fly very slow and very steep. The first time you hook a thermal and you stay in it and you actually climb when you're first learning how to fly a glider is a thrilling experience. Here in the West, our thermals are relatively strong. So when you do find one, a lot of times you can be going up 800, 1,000, 1,200 feet a minute in a thermal. That's a thrilling experience, and you do get to watch the ground sink away. It's a very different kind of feeling than you would get in a powered airplane. because the engine's doing that for you. In a glider, you're doing it yourself. You've mastered the ability to find a thermal and then to stay in that thermal. Oftentimes when I'm soaring, I'll be flying with other soaring birds. You know, I've seen them up at 15, 16, 18,000 feet. They're up there, and they're not hunting up there, certainly. They're just out enjoying the art of soaring.
Flying with the birds is an experience you can't imagine. The birds accept a glider as another bird. They don't realize you're an airplane because you don't make any noise. And today was probably about the third experience I've ever had. It's not unusual to see birds soaring around, but to have them fly up like right next to your plane and kind of look you in the eye and go, hey, I can do this better than you. And that happened this morning when we were flying. This magnificent hawk was there, and he wasn't just flying, he was soaring. And soaring means he's not moving his wings. He was really close to my plane, and if you put this on the film, you'll hear my voice get so excited. Oh my God, there's a hawk. Did you see that hawk?
Oh my God, this hawk is right on top of me. Oh.
He was soaring, and he kind of had his wings angled up like this, and he was like penetrating the air and looked in, and then he just swooped away.
I can actually see it on you.
Oh my God, it's beautiful.
He spent a few seconds there hovering with it, and that's them playing with you. And I know this sounds corny, but you just feel like you're part of the environment, and you're just part of everything. This is very uplifting, spiritual experience in a certain way. But I think that's what we all want, in our lives. We want to find these things that are going to uplift us and take us somewhere else, or bring us to new frontiers.
Mark and Bill have reached cruising altitude. At 14,000 feet, they must use oxygen. The plastic tubes under their noses releases oxygen into their nostrils. Without oxygen, the pilots are susceptible to hypoxia, a very dangerous condition. Pilots fear hypoxia, which can dim their vision and dull their mind. At 15,000 feet, the pilots must have a clear understanding of their surroundings in order to maintain their safety.
The soaring conditions out here in the West are some of the best in the world. You've got, thousands of square miles that you can fly over. I can be over the valleys up in northern New Mexico and realize that nobody has a clue that I'm there. I'm out there just enjoying all this magnificent scenery, and it's mine, it's personal. You've got this entire ocean of air. It's your personal playground. You don't really know where you're going to go. You got an idea. You've looked at all the maps. It says, yeah, it looks pretty good. It looks like it's going to be good to the north. Maybe the day develops entirely differently, and it's like, okay, it's an east-west day. It's just so much fun.
Pilots are having trouble leaving the Estancia Valley. They can reach the Manzanos, a small mountain range west of Moriarty, But heading north to the Rockies isn't looking good. The cloud bases are low, and the cumulus clouds, which typically provide lift, have overdeveloped and are producing copious amounts of rain. The rain creates sink. Yet, there's a huge amount of lift as air replaces the rain. If a glider were to be sucked up into the cloud with lift this powerful, the pilot could be frozen and their aircraft torn to pieces. The condensation in the air is well below the freezing point. As the pilots climb within 1,000 feet of the cloud base, snow falls in the middle of a New Mexico July.
When you're flying an aircraft, regardless of whether it's a glider or a power plane or whatever, when you add the third dimension, you increase the risk factor. Now, every time you fly, there's some risk involved, and part of the learning curve is to say, are the risks today such that I shouldn't be flying? If things aren't aligned in your favor, then you probably shouldn't be. When you're flying a sailplane cross country, you have to remember that I need to keep within gliding distance to someplace where if I have to land, I can do so without damaging the sailplane or damaging me. A lot of that has to do with your experience, knowing how far you can push, knowing when to shift gears, knowing when to slow down, knowing when to press on.
The pilots have been flying for over 3.5 hours now and dodging thunderstorms the entire time. They're trapped in the valley and stand no chance of making the Rocky Mountains. Their primary concern right now is getting home safely. With the home airfield now in reach, the pilots open valves in their airplanes and release the water they loaded before their flight. Water increases the performance of the aircraft in strong conditions. It also makes the ride a little smoother by making the airplane heavier, but it also increases stall speed, so the pilots must fly more carefully. After a grueling day, Bill and Mark safely returned to Moriarty.
70 knots.
The pilot's goal to go to Salida will have to wait for another day.
What I really started to realize is that people were not exposed to this generally in the US, that it was not something that was very well known. Soaring was not a sport that people really saw very much. It's not like football or something where you can sit and watch and it's right there in front of you all the time. Once the plane takes off, it kind of vanishes and you don't hear it and you don't see it very often. But as I started sharing this with my friends, I realized how much people enjoyed it. And so that sort of stuck with me through the business. I realized that even people I didn't know, I could take them up and they'd be very impressed with what the glider's capable of doing and the beauty of flying around in places like this where the scenery is so much bigger when you're up and you can see for hundreds of miles like we can here in the Southwest. with nothing around you and you're flying, you don't really get a sensation of speed. But when you're close to a ridge, then all of a sudden you feel that you're moving, and you're moving relatively quickly. And of course the silence and the smoothness of it, and so many people have commented to me that, wow, this is just like when I dream about flying. So people, have flying dreams, and this is very similar to that. You're just sort of floating along and looking at the scenery around you. So I get that comment quite often. Is it life-changing for people? Sometimes I think it is. They've never seen anything like this, and so they look at scenery with a different perspective.
It's late in the day, and the strong lift from earlier has subsided. Both glider Bob's plane and the camera ship have gotten low. In this expansive high mountain range, and in a typical glider, this could constitute a serious issue. But we came prepared. Our backup plan is fondly referred to as the Iron Thermal. These aircraft perform so well that all they need is a little extra altitude to get home safely. Perched atop Deep Creek Mesa, Telluride Regional Airport is the highest commercial airport in North America at 9,070 feet. Taking off and landing on this field is an exciting challenge.
Telluride Regional Airport, automated weather observation 1727, Zulu, weather, wind 220 at 5, stability 10.
Traffic glider 5021 descending north of the airport. Be left traffic runway 9.
People dreamed about flying ever since they saw birds flying. And how do we get to do that? Well, now we can do that. And I think that fascination with being up in the air is still with us. I don't think that's going to go away.
weather isn't cooperating for Chris. A hailstorm has taken her by surprise and is thrashing her glider. This downburst is also a source of sink. She'll need to get out of it and find lift quickly if she's going to safely return to Driggs.
So we in gliding always say where there's sink, there's lift. It's positive thinking. You're sinking, 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 which is, again, that means you get into an air mass that is just taking the glider down. I flew into something, it was fine, and then when I came to come out, it was not fine. And that is just so shocking, and it can just really scare you. I was flying along this ridge, and I felt myself getting lower and lower, and I had this little alarm go off and says, no, I'm not comfortable. So I turned around, and then I really started to sink. And when we come out of the mountains, we have our minimum altitudes at different spots that we're supposed to hit. Well, I was underneath all of them.
I was, now I'm not anymore, but I'm 11.3, so I'd love another 100 feet or so. Here I'm back.
And so I'm coming out down by this last mountain, which I'm sure will be in our film at some point, the Targhee, and Targhee was up there, and I should have been up there in relation to it. I can see the wall of water coming across the other mountain range towards the airport, and I'm back there. I gotta get home right now, and I'm like tearing back as fast as I can.
There is a little lift right here. I'm just going to take it.
I knew once I got out of the mountains I would be just fine. So things can change. In the background, you're kind of hearing a little microburst out there, a little thunderstorm. The mountains, we always say, if you don't like the weather, wait an hour. I am constantly paying attention to what just happened underneath me, what's going on outside the airplane wind-wise, lift-wise, sink-wise, my airspeed, the terrain, what's going on with the weather, and all these things. You just have to layer your ability to take this information in, synthesize it, and then be totally flexible to respond to this stuff, because it changes every second. It's always exhilarating, always exciting, always different, always an adventure, and it requires this kind of focus and ability to assess, make good judgments, and stay absolutely hands-on 100% of the time, which is fun. That is way fun. So that's why I love it. Exhausted.
Moriarty Municipal Airport. Automated weather observation 0112. Zulu weather wind 070 at.
have good years and we have bad years, so why did we not do as well this year as we have in the past? And part of it had to do with the weather. We went from very, very windy late spring and into early summer. We almost went from too windy to fly to monsoon season where everything's overdeveloped and you can't fly that much because there's no place to go when all the storms start to develop. You have to really, really be careful and pick your courses carefully, otherwise you're going to find yourself out of ideas. You go to shift gears and you find yourself with that box full of neutrals.
Summer of 2013 was one of the wettest on record for Albuquerque and the surrounding communities, including Moriarty. As much as the pilots wanted to go far, this was not the summer for long flights. Earlier in the summer, Mark and Bill had ambitions of flying round trip from Moriarty to Salida. Though unable to fly there, they finally made good on their promise. In order to make the trip, they had to disassemble their planes, trailer them, and then reassemble them in Salida.
I'm not a particularly spiritual person, but yeah, I do get quite a bit of inspiration and a great deal of gratitude to whatever powers that be that created this incredible world.
14 Pop is departing runway 6 fighter in tow, Salida.
Soaring exposes you to things that you're never ever going to experience if you never get off the ground in an aircraft. You'll never be able to take off in your Bonanza and fly a ridge with a bald eagle and have the bald eagle acknowledge your presence and actually spend time flying with you as a kindred spirit. How do monarch butterflies get to South America? They soar, and I've flown in thermals with monarch butterflies, and that's kind of cool. So there's a lot of things that you can experience if you really enjoy just getting out and deriving pleasure from the environment. I don't think there's a better way to do it than soaring.
8,000 feet above the valley floor, the gliders are tossed and tumbled like stones in a river. At these altitudes, the wind is always strong. As it flows through the mountains, it becomes roiled and turbulent. The Sangre de Cristos are a beautiful, rugged range full of massive granite peaks erupting well above the tree line. They have been sculpted by ice over the millennia, and the sun shining on the alpine bowls often creates thermals. Streams and rivers flow from these giants, inviting great summer fly fishing, rafting, and kayaking. On these same peaks, extraordinary cloud streets form, making it a paradise for soaring pilots. South of Salida, they'll cross Great Sand Dunes National Park. The park lies high in the San Luis Valley of Colorado. It's an amazing landscape of grasslands, sand dunes, and mountains. Bill and Mark revel in the long run at high altitude, dancing on the wind. Their plans to beat personal bests will have to wait for another time. For now, they can enjoy a special freedom, traveling hundreds of miles across the spine of the North American continent in silence, admiring the beauty of the mountains, seen from a perspective like no other. The big sky country of Western North America enchants and challenges soaring pilots. It's here that they experience the extraordinary beauty and adventure that they find on the CloudStreets, soaring the American West.
Presentation of CloudStreet, Soaring the American West, is sponsored in part by the Conrad N. Hilton Foundation, improving the lives of disadvantaged and vulnerable people throughout the world. Learn more at hiltonfoundation.org. And by the Soaring Society of America, fostering and promoting American soaring since 1932. For more information on learning how to soar, please visit ssa.org. And by STEMI AG. STEMI, the fine art of flying. Learn more at stemi.de. CloudStreet Soaring the American West is available on Blu-ray and DVD. To order, please visit cloudstreethd.org. It's also available on iTunes.